Hi, I'm answering a client question about living with a sibling and receiving criticism from that sibling. Interestingly, I have received two client emails on this very topic this week, and these are adult human beings writing to me. So, the first thing I want to say to you very briefly is Google the term enmeshed family. See if you can understand what that means and how much your family or your dynamics with your sibling fall into that category. And see if you can start scooching into more separation and individuation. And, get radical. If that means that living with family might be a bad idea for you, well, then taking more space physically could be a very good idea. And I'm not saying that's the solution at all. So the other thing that I want to address the most is this idea of how to receive their criticism. And this could be useful for anyone listening in on receiving criticism from anybody. So first of all, be very clear that if there is a sting for you in what's being said, there's still something to get square between you and you. I remember the first time my sister ever told me something scathing about me that I really just didn't feel anything, which was just wow, amazing progress. But it's just so liberating when you're so clear between you and you that when somebody brings in an outside estimation of you, you can just neutrally look at it and go, huh. And, if you want to check out, is this true, or is the face of God showing up for me here for me to pay attention to something? Do I want to evaluate that again? And if your evaluation shows you your evolution or allows you to see, oh my God, I'm doing so much better with this than I used to, then brilliant, and enjoy that. If you find, okay, well, I'm still not happy with this, so no wonder it stung when they said it to me, then you get to work on that. But just because the face of God, don't make it about your sibling, don't make it about someone, don't never make it, I always say, make no one the villain. When you're focusing on the other and the person who's doing this to you and what they do and how they did it or whatever, it's the wrong focus, and it's only going to take you down. You're not going to ever gain from looking at what they're doing that's fucked up, even if it is. So I invite you to come back to you and come back to your own estimation of your growth. Now, so the second person who wrote this email to me actually in the email started kind of listing, well, he doesn't see that I've done this and I've done that and now I do this and I've been doing this better and I've done more of this in the last couple of months than I have in the last 7 years. And so brilliant. But let me just tweak that and invite you to have this reckoning between you and you so that you get to enjoy what you're discovering. So you get to say, oh my God, I love that he brought this to my attention because I got to actually really look at how I'm doing and wow, I'm doing better. Now, this requires that you liberate him from having a good opinion of you, or that you just let go of what he thinks of you. And I'm saying he in this situation, but for anyone, it could be she, they, whatever. Get liberated from what your family members perceive you to be. And if they're holding an old story, well, it's an old story. People love to hold on to their old stories. So they're holding on to an old story. Human beings do that. I bet you've got some old stories you're still holding on to. So, I'm not saying it's wrong for you to be upset. I'm not saying it's wrong for you to want them to think better of you. And by the way, if you are living with them, or if you do value a close relationship with them, if your intentions for the relationship are more closeness, more understanding, more intimacy, then sure, seek to invite them to a conversation where you invite them to ask you questions about yourself instead of telling you about yourself. Or where you tell them, I'd love for you to really listen to me deeply, and I'd like to listen to you back. So those are just some possibilities. But bottom line, if you can let go, like see how close you can get to 100%, scooch that way. Let go of what they think of you. Let go of their estimations of you. And if those come to your attention and you want to square something between you and you, do that and do it kindly, even if what they present to you isn't kind or isn't done kindly. Now, I just want to add, it's certainly an option to tell your siblings or whoever, anyone in your family, I don't want you to permit yourself to tell me what you think of me just because we're related. Or I don't want you to believe that you have the right to comment on my choices and my level of health and my progress and my the pace of my evolution or anything else. I would invite you to just mind your own world. I'm seeking to mind mine, and I notice, I sometimes find myself having thoughts about what you're doing or what you haven't followed through with that you've said you were going to do, and so on. And my intention is to keep coming back to me and working on me. And if it's your belief that you're doing a better job of it than I am, you could be right. And I'm still just going to focus on me. And if you want to hear about it, I've actually been noticing some really cool forward movement in my own personal world. I'd be willing to tell you about it if you'd like to hear it. Now, the last thing I want to address is you're telling me that your brother is saying no to an invitation to regular meetings to actually discuss who does what, who owes what money, who does what in terms of elder care, and wants to just give you really general, like you should be doing better, you should be more proactive, you should know what to do, but isn't willing to discuss specifics with you. So I invite you to just say in very clear terms that that's dysfunctional communication. And, you can certainly say in nonviolent communication ways, when you do that, I feel a little crazy and I feel disrespected. And I feel that you're inviting me to look through your worldview at myself with no regard to what my worldview is. And that doesn't work for me. So what you could do is, again, invite him to these meetings. Tell him what you see about the wisdom of this. You can do this in an email if that's more comfortable than actually talking it out. And just say, look, let's get really clear. Let's have clear agreements because that's functional, because we can each stay in our power. Let's have clear agreements about who's doing what we do and don't owe each other, what we're doing in terms of time, money, shared responsibilities. And, beyond that, I invite you not to permit yourself to comment on when I choose to sleep in, if I've fulfilled the agreements of what I do in the morning on certain mornings, and so on. So if he does not take you up on this invitation to clear meetings, clear agreements, clear communication, then, you've got some choices to make. Extricate yourself more. There's a whole spectrum of how you might do that, which could include anywhere from how much you don't give mental space to what frustrates you about him, what you do and don't choose to say, how much you persist in inviting him calmly to clear and more functional communications, how much time you spend with him, and ultimately whether you want to share the same house or not. So wherever you're still afraid of what you need from your sibling or from your family, keep working through your thoughts about where your safety comes from and what makes you okay or not okay. But don't want anything from your family. Don't expect anything from your family. That's a better way to say it than want. If you want something, fine, and you can ask for it and you can negotiate and whatever. But see if you can move yourself away from holding on to any thought that I need this from anyone, but certainly family members, in order to be okay. I need him to think well of me in order to think well of myself. I need him to provide this or that to my well-being for me to be well. I need to live with my family members to have somewhere to be. I would question those thoughts. I would open to other solutions. I would set some very clear intentions that could be fulfilled whether you do or don't live with them. And you keep minding your evolution, and you keep very clearly communicating with sibling and anyone else in the family about what you do and don't want, what you are and aren't willing to do, and stay out of evaluating them and keep inviting them not to evaluate you, but you can leave a conversation when they go into what you don't want them to go into. You don't, if you are inviting him not to permit himself to comment on you, then you're also going to need to not stick around when he's commenting. You don't need to respond. You don't need to defend. You don't need to explain. You could certainly invite him to communication about these things if he's open to listening and if you guys want to understand each other. But I would let go of needing that. And I would be very clear about boundaries, about what I am and am not willing to listen to. Okay, play with it. Make it a grand experiment. Set yourself free from family, whether you live with them or not.